I said sit down. My father barked, slamming his palm on the table so hard the silverware jumped. But I was already frozen, my hands trembling around the worn-out strap of my purse, standing at the edge of the long dining table like a forgotten guest at my own funeral. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. You're a disgrace to this family, he roared, his face turning a blotchy red. You walk in here like you belong. You should be thanking us for even letting you step inside this house. A fork clinked against a plate. My mother snorted without looking up, dabbing her mouth with a linen napkin like she'd just been mildly inconvenienced. Charity has its limits, Rick. Don't push it, she muttered. Laughter broke out from down the table. My cousins, aunts, even my younger brother, Logan, the golden boy in his crisp designer suit. Everyone looked at me like I was some smudge on a spotless mirror. Like my mere presence tainted their expensive wine and perfectly roasted duck. You couldn't even finish college, Logan said, slicing through a medium-rare steak with surgical precision. What are you doing now? Still cleaning toilets at that motel off Route 19. The room burst into laughter again, like they'd been waiting for this moment. But I didn't flinch. Not this time. I looked at my father's face, the same man who once carried me on his shoulders to 4th of July parades, now looking at me like I was a disease he wished he could erase from memory. I didn't come here to fight, I said, my voice low but steady. I came because Grandpa invited me, and because... Enough, my father thundered, rising to his feet. You dare speak like that in my house. It's not your house, came a sudden, thunderous voice from the head of the table. Every neck turned. My grandfather, Walter Carrington, 78 years old, sat still with his aged hands pressed flat on the dark oak table. His eyes, those piercing steel blue eyes I'd always known held secrets, were locked on my father with a calm that was far more dangerous than any yelling. Then it's time, he said, rising slowly to his feet, that I show you all what she's been hiding. The entire room fell silent. What's that supposed to mean? My Aunt Cheryl whispered. She's been hiding something? Logan laughed nervously, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. What she got? A boyfriend. An apartment above a gas station. My grandfather didn't answer. Instead, he pulled open the chest pocket of his tailored suit and took out a single manila envelope, thick and sealed with red wax. The kind that felt like it came from a lawyer's drawer, not a random office store. He turned to me. May I? I nodded. He handed me the envelope. Open it, Annalise. I tore the seal, my hands shaking. Inside were 3 documents. Legal ones. I scanned the bolded headers. Articles of incorporation. Deed of transfer. Shareholder ownership agreement. And then my fingers landed on the highlighted text. Owner. Annalise Carrington. Sole proprietor. The blood drained from my father's face. What is this? My mother said, standing up. Grandpa turned to everyone. For the last 4 years, while you were all too busy judging her for mopping motel floors, she's been building something you can't even imagine. I loaned her the first $50,000 from my trust. She turned it into $6 million. Silence. Deafening silence. She didn't waste her life. She created a company. From scratch. And I personally signed over Carrington Creek Holdings to her name last week. She's your new landlord. This house, the land it sits on, the vineyard you toast with at Thanksgiving, hers. Everyone stared at me like I was a ghost come back to haunt them. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just looked at the man who had screamed at me minutes earlier and said quietly, I begged you to believe in me. All I ever wanted was to matter. My father's lips quivered. You tricked us. No, Grandpa said, voice sharp. You dismissed her, and now you'll live with what you missed. The dining room felt colder than the air conditioning could explain. You could have heard a pin drop between the gasps, the confusion, the stunned silence that hovered like fog over the long mahogany table. My mother slowly sat down, her napkin falling to the floor unnoticed. My father remained standing, jaw tight, fists clenched, as if forcing himself not to lash out. Logan was the first to crack. This is insane, he muttered. You're lying. There's no way she's been working at some dumpy inn, not running corporations. She's been doing both, Grandpa snapped, turning to him with fire in his voice. She took double shifts, cleaned rooms by day, and coded at night. She built a digital property management platform on her own, pitched it, scaled it, and now manages over 40 boutique properties across 3 states. That motel? It's one of hers now. My brother blinked. No, my mother said shakily. No, she's just a girl. She's never been exceptional, she's been average. Ordinary. Unremarkable. I stepped forward. Maybe you would have noticed something remarkable if you'd ever bothered to look past your expectations. My mother's lip curled. Don't talk to me like you're somebody now. I am somebody, I replied, with a calm that surprised even me. I'm someone who bled for every dime while you drank wine and judged. I'm someone who begged for approval while you mocked my dreams. I looked around the room, one face at a time. My aunt, who once told me I wasn't marriage material. My cousin Ellie, who posted about my pitiful little job on Facebook last year. Even the pastor's wife, who smiled at church, but looked away every time she saw me walk to work in that faded gray uniform. You all left, I whispered. And now you're sitting on land I own. Logan stood abruptly, knocking his chair back. This changes nothing. She's not family. She's just a fluke. A charity case who got lucky. Grandpa's voice sliced through the room. She's my heir. And she earned it. You're just doing this to spite Dad, Logan shot back. No, Grandpa said, his voice chillingly even. I'm doing this because Annalise is the only one in this room who understands sacrifice. The rest of you treat legacy like it's owed. She treated it like it was earned. My father's face was a twisted mix of rage and humiliation. You'd humiliate me like this? At my own table? For her? She's not the one who humiliated you, Rick, Grandpa said, pointing a trembling finger. You did that yourself. The moment you raised your hand to her 5 years ago and threw her out without a dime. You told me to, my dad growled. You said she had to learn on her own. I said support her without rescuing her, not abandon her like trash. I swallowed hard. The memories came rushing back. The night I left with nothing but a duffel bag and a $28 balance in my checking account. Sleeping in my car behind the very motel I now owned. Eating crackers and peanut butter for dinner. Repeating the same affirmation every night. One day they'll regret it. I was shaking, but I didn't cry. Not this time. I'm not here for revenge, I said softly. I'm here because Grandpa asked me to show you the truth. What you do with that, that's on you. A silence followed, deeper than the last. Then, my grandfather reached under the table and retrieved a second envelope. I was going to announce this at Christmas, he said. But seeing how tonight's gone, he slid it across the table to me. What is it? Logan asked. I opened it, slower this time. My hands still trembled. Inside was a formal letter from Carrington Vineyard Estates, LLC. Transfer of title, full ownership. My eyes widened. You're giving me the vineyard? I asked. Grandpa smiled sadly. It's always been yours. You just had to come back strong enough to handle it. That broke the dam. My mother stood up, her chair screeching back. That's OURS. That land's been in this family for generations. And it still is, Grandpa said coldly. But from today forward it belongs to the one Carrington who actually built something with nothing. Who gave when she had nothing left to give. Logan stormed out, muttering under his breath. My father stood paralyzed, staring at me. Finally he spoke. You'll regret this. The family will turn on you. I nodded. Let them. The night didn't end with that slammed envelope. It ended with whispers. I could hear them echoing through the long marble hallways of the Carrington estate as I walked alone to the guest room my grandfather insisted I stay in. Behind shut doors, I knew the knives were being sharpened, not literal ones, but words, resentment, manipulation. They hadn't accepted it. Not truly. The humiliation was too fresh, too bitter. But for once, I wasn't the one walking away in tears. I closed the door and locked it behind me, leaning against the cold oak panels as my legs finally gave way. I collapsed onto the bed, exhaling a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for the last 5 years. I did it, not to hurt them, but to prove I wasn't the weak, unwanted girl they threw away. A knock came just after midnight. I stood, cautious, and cracked open the door. It was Grandpa, alone, his expression unreadable. Can we talk? I nodded and stepped aside. He sat slowly on the armchair in the corner, his knees creaking in protest. You handled yourself with dignity tonight. I knew you would. I crossed my arms, unsure of how to respond. They'll come after me, won't they? He nodded. Yes. Not directly, but they'll whisper. They'll sow doubt. They'll try to paint you as some schemer who manipulated me in my old age. I swallowed hard. So what do? You lead. Quietly. Powerfully. Like a Carrington. But not like them. I stared at him. You mean with grace. He smiled, eyes gleaming. Exactly. Then his face darkened. But there's something I didn't say at dinner. Something you deserve to know. I sat down across from him, heart suddenly pounding. When your father kicked you out, it wasn't just pride or disappointment. It was fear. Fear. He nodded slowly. You see, you were always more like me than him. Too much heart. Too much spine. Too many questions. And your father, well, he's made mistakes. Financial ones. I blinked. What kind of mistakes? He leaned forward. He mortgaged half the vineyard 3 years ago to cover Logan's failed tech startup. He forged my name on the documents to get it through. My blood ran cold. What? I whispered. He forged. He thought I'd never find out. But I did. Quietly. I let it sit because I wanted to see who'd earn it back. And now, ironically, he's at risk of being evicted from a property he put in your name. I stood, pacing now. That's why he was so aggressive tonight. He knew this was coming. He just didn't expect you to be the one holding the cards. I covered my face with my hands. God. And there's more, Grandpa said quietly. Your brother's trust fund is gone. Your parents drained it to keep up appearances. The cars, the vacations, the golf club memberships. It was all a facade. I sank into the bed. They treated me like garbage, I murmured, while living off money that wasn't even theirs. He nodded. And now it's yours. Silence settled between us. Finally, Grandpa stood. They'll test you, Annalise. Don't stoop to their level. But don't let them trample you again either. I nodded. And when he left, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the fog roll over the vineyard hills, thinking about every night I cried myself to sleep in my car. Every time I scrubbed floors with bloody knuckles. Every time I reminded myself, you don't get to quit. The next morning, I dressed simply, jeans, boots, and a crisp white button-down. No designer labels. No power heels. I didn't need them, because I was already power. Downstairs, the family gathered again. Coffee. Muffins. Tension so thick you could chew it. I walked in. Heads turned. Conversation stopped. Logan scoffed, arms folded. Look who decided to come down from her throne. I ignored him. I turned to my father. I need to speak with you. Privately. He hesitated, but Grandpa's sharp nod left him no choice. He followed me into the study, the same one where he once tore up my college applications, saying I'd never make it out there. I shut the door behind us. I know about the mortgage, I said without preamble. He went still. And the forged signature. You don't know what you're talking about. I do. Grandpa told me. And the title is already in my name. He swallowed. I stepped forward. You have 1 week to vacate the guest house. The estate remains in my control, but I won't humiliate you if you leave peacefully. His face twisted. You ungrateful little. No, I snapped. You don't get to say that anymore. I begged you to believe in me, and you beat me down. You humiliated me. You enjoyed it. Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't blink. I'm not asking for an apology. I don't even want one. I'm just telling you, your reign ends here. And with that, I turned and walked out, leaving him in the study alone, staring at the daughter he no longer controlled. 3 days passed. 3 days of whispered calls behind closed doors, of Logan stomping through the hallways, slamming drawers, making empty threats, of my mother glaring from behind her coffee mug like she could shatter me with a look. My father? He barely spoke, just sulked, tense and restless, already packing the guest house under Grandpa's orders, and mine. And I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. But every morning, I walked the vineyard grounds with a new property manager I'd hired. I reviewed contracts. I drafted a proposal to modernize the distribution line and expand to 3 more states. My company, Haven and Hearth Hospitality, was no longer small. And now the Carrington Vineyard was under that banner. On the 4th night, I sat in Grandpa's study going over acquisition papers when the door creaked open. It was Logan. Got a second? He said, his voice too smooth, too polite. I didn't answer, just gestured toward the chair. He sat looking humbled. At least that's what he wanted me to think. I was a jerk, he started. To you. For years. I see that now. I raised an eyebrow. I mean, you were always different. Quiet. Weird. You never fit in. I thought you were just wasting your life. But obviously I was wrong. He leaned forward. I want to make it right. I leaned back.
How?
He smiled, like a snake shedding old skin. You give me a role in your company. I've got marketing experience. I know people in the city. I could help you scale. Take the Vineyard National. I laughed short, cold. You mean the same way you scaled your app business? The one Dad bailed out using forged documents. His face twitched. I didn't know he was going to do that. You didn't stop him either. He stood, frustrated now. Come on, Anna. You're not seriously going to hold a grudge forever. Family means second chances. No, I said, standing to match his height. Family means not burning me alive just to warm your ego. You didn't just ignore me, Logan.
You mocked me. You posted about me.
You wanted people to laugh at me. I was young. You're still cruel. I cut in. You think you're entitled to what I bled for. You think one apology and a job title erases a decade of damage. His mask cracked. You'll regret this, he hissed. You think you're untouchable? You think this money, this land, this moment means you're better than us. I don't think, I whispered. I know. He stormed out. The next morning, things got worse. I was sipping coffee on the patio when my phone buzzed. 10 missed calls. 3 voicemails. 1 text from my assistant, Maria. Annalise, someone leaked confidential contracts to our competitor. They just launched a mirror platform, using our exact design. I froze. Logan. I jumped into action, my mind racing. I called Maria back, got the legal team involved, and filed a cease and desist. But damage had already begun. Clients were hesitating. Investors wanted answers. My rising empire? Suddenly under fire. By nightfall, I had enough. I found Logan alone in the cellar, pretending to be inspecting wine barrels. Probably hiding. I threw the legal packet on the counter. Your signature's on the email that leaked our back-end prototype. He froze. I don't know what you're talking about. You used your old college email, Logan. You didn't even bother covering your tracks. That doesn't prove. I already called the attorney. If you don't sign this agreement surrendering your claim to any Carrington assets and formally severing ties to my company, I'll press charges. You wouldn't. I already started, I whispered.
He stared at me.
For the first time in his life, he looked truly afraid. You destroy your own brother? You destroyed yourself.
He signed.
Then he said something I'll never forget. You'll never be one of us. No matter what name's on the deed, you'll always be the outsider. And for a moment he looked satisfied, because those words cut deeper than a lawsuit ever could. I spent that night alone. The wind howled against the Carrington windows. My heart was heavy, not from fear of losing, but from the realization that nothing I built would ever earn their love. But maybe I didn't need it anymore. The family gathered again, this time not by choice, but because the news broke. Local hospitality tech founder buys out Carrington Vineyard. The article went viral overnight. My name was everywhere. The girl they mocked was now the owner of everything they stood on. And they hated it. Grandpa stood by me as I addressed the family one last time in the great room. You don't have to like me, I said. You don't have to clap or pretend I belong. But you will respect what I've built. And if you can't, the gate's over there. My father stared, silent. My mother looked away. Logan was already gone. Just as I turned to leave, the door opened. A tall man in a charcoal suit stepped in, carrying a briefcase. Ms. Carrington, he said. Ready for the signatures? I nodded. Let's finalize it. Wait, my mom whispered. Who is he? Grandpa smiled. Her husband. Gasps filled the room. Yes, I said. My business partner. My legal counsel. And my husband. We married last year. Quietly. I looked my mother dead in the eye. You said no man would ever see value in me. Turns out, one did. And helped me build an empire while you were too busy judging my shoes. My husband placed the final contract down. I've also been working on transferring ownership of the lake house, the Texas property, and the Vineyard brand name, he added casually. All under Annalise's umbrella company. You're destroying this family, my father whispered. No, I said calmly. I'm rebuilding what you ruined. With integrity, with work, and without ever becoming like you. I turned to Grandpa. He nodded. It's your legacy now. And as I walked out that door, I didn't look back. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally knew I didn't need their approval. I was enough. All along.